Welcome into the Georgia Vote streaming panel, the bonus panel. You might have caught us on television, and here we are on the Plus app now. As always, Faith Jesse, my co-anchor, joining us, and all returning panelists here, Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, Republican strategist Spiro Amburn, and the editor-in-chief of the Atlanta Voice, Donnell Suggs. Guys, thank you for joining us, for being here. And we say it every week because it's true every week. We got a lot going on in Georgia politics. I see some knowing nods here at the table. Let's start with this. We're now about a week out from this record-setting government shutdown. On the show this week, on the Georgia Vote, if you watched, you heard us talk with both the Democratic Party chair and the Republican Party chair in Georgia. We asked them about their thoughts on whether the shutdown was effective for their parties or not. Fred, I want to ask you, did Democrats get out of the shutdown what they wanted to get?
A promise of a conversation at some point? Absolutely not. Listen, after the November 4th election, Democrats we had the wind in our backs, a lot of momentum.
There were those PSC races and then in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City.
Just across the board. And it was almost a nice cap to a great year for Democrats, whether you're talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race back in the spring and all of that. And yet, somehow or another, we managed to stymie our own momentum and disappoint our own voters and throw our own wet blanket on our fire.
This breakaway group of 7 Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats in the Senate.
Absolutely, and it's just and it's just so very frustrating for Democratic voters because the reality is, I posted about this in my story. My premiums are going to go up anywhere from $400 to over $1,000, right, per month, and so it's worth the fight. And when someone capitulates, right, with just the idea that you'll have a conversation and a vote, what was the point in that?
So many Americans have asked, was this the right time to have that conversation? Because healthcare does not know red or blue. There are several Republicans. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said, my own kids are going to see these insurance rates rise, but I do not like ACA. She does not like the Affordable Care Act, right? But just like healthcare crosses party lines, so does money. The government shutdown. It impacted people from their paychecks to SNAP to flights, right? Absolutely. People were not able to make their business meetings or go to see grandma in the hospital, et cetera. Was this the right time? Spiro, I think I know your answer, but I'm going to let you answer that. And what can Republicans take away from this?
Yeah. Well, look, we're 12 months out from the general election next year. So, I think, frankly, there's going to be a lot of things that come along over the next 12 months that are going to affect the elections in 26. Certainly, this will be part of the conversation, but to be somewhat cynical, I think it'll be kind of old news at that point. I think that from a Republican standpoint, I think Republicans have a lot of work to do.
You think the shutdown will be old news?
I do. Okay. I mean, I think it'll be a topic, but I think with those PSC elections as an example, the state party has a lot of work to do, and the state party has one job, and that is to support Republican candidates and let people know there's an election. And frankly, they failed. So if they don't get that operation turned around, I think Democrats did a much better job mobilizing their voters, and I do think have momentum going into 26.
You mentioned we're about 12 months away from the general election, which is true, but we are much closer to the primaries. Donnell, do you think, one of the things we've heard from a lot of people we've talked to in our reporting is the word frustration come up again and again and again. The primaries are much closer than the general. Do you get the sense that voters will be thinking about this shutdown when they go and cast their primary ballots?
Absolutely. There are people who didn't get paid for the last 6 weeks. Right. And you have to figure out Thanksgiving and you have to take care of Christmas. That's not going to end when Christmas is over and January comes in. Before you know it, May will be here. And a lot of folks that talk to us, our reader base is Democratic for the most part, and a lot of them are still frustrated about how they got hurt by this, and now they have to kind of find a way to figure it out at home and then get into 26. So it's not 5 months, 6 months from now, it's not going to go away.
Especially when every campaign, Republicans and Democrats, you're hearing the word affordability a whole lot. Right now, people care about their money. Sure. Nothing else matters if I cannot afford to eat, to take my kids to school, to work.
Absolutely. And remember, this is only a temporary state, so to speak. We're facing another cliff in January.
Right.
At the end of January. So this will still be, I think, a topic.
And we're talking about the issue of the ACA subsidies. It is an unresolved issue. We heard from Chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia, Josh McCoon, on the Georgia Vote. He said he expects the House to vote as well as the Senate on a potential extension, or as he put it, a short-term extension, maybe something different. This is going to be a conversation that keeps coming up through the end of the year. I want to switch topics briefly here, though, guys, about something you said earlier on the show, Fred. You talked about this split over the Epstein files vote with President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you made the comment, paraphrasing, but you said this seems to be an early indication of President Trump losing some of his firm, extremely firm grasp on the Republican Party. Yeah. I want to get your follow-up thoughts in a moment, but Spiro, as a Republican, do you see that? Do you feel like President Trump is starting to lose a little bit of his sway over his base?
No, I wouldn't say he's starting to lose any sway over his base. I think he will be the most important factor in the 26 elections, even though he's not on the ballot. That being said, he's not on the ballot. So I think Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of charting her own course here. I think her district is going to support her. They're going to vote for her. I think you mentioned that earlier. And I think that's where you could draw some parallels when you look at Governor Kemp in the past, going against the president. I think Georgians have a tendency to, make decisions separate from, who's on the top of the ticket. But with Trump not on the ballot, though, I don't think you're going to see as many Republicans perhaps turn out like they would in a presidential year. And I think that's going to make, those margins are already tight, and I think statewide, I think that's going to be a factor. Yeah.
That excitement is something Democrats are also going to be looking for. Fred.
Well, for sure. And so remember, even though this is the Georgia votes, Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't the only one who broke with the president over Epstein and over these other issues. He didn't change his opinion on encouraging Republicans to vote for the release of the Epstein files until that there were enough votes because the Democrat was seated, and other Republicans, another 8 Republicans, started saying, "Hey, we're gonna break away from it." So once it became sort of a bit of inevitability that was going to happen, he jumped on that train. And so that's why I say when you look at that, and you look at there were even talks amongst hardliners during the shutdown that there needs to be some sort of compromise on health care and other issues like that. So we're seeing Republicans are now speaking out. 8 months ago, they wouldn't even speak out. It was just fall in line. And actually, a year ago, right after the election, everything was just fall in line. Yeah. And now we're starting to see people say, well, I don't know if I agree with you on that.
Maybe the voter doesn't want it. If we could we take an inside look into one of our local races, Fred? We were talking about this, the mayor of Sandy Springs. We're seeing a bipartisan push here, right? Democrat Esther Panich supporting the incumbent mayor, Rusty Paul, a Republican. How rare is that for Georgia? And we could take it nationwide. Could we see more of this?
Well, that is the discussion du jour, so to speak, right now. So, that doesn't happen too terribly often, but when it happens, it does tend to happen at the municipal level, right? Because mayors, so we saw this with Mayor Dickens in Atlanta. We had Republican support in the city council races there and stuff like that. But what makes this really interesting is that Rusty Paul isn't just a Republican, he's the former chair of the state GOP, and you have someone who was a leader in the North Fulton Dems and Dante Carter, the opponent there. And so this has opened up a huge can of worms with the implication that Mr. Carter was anti-Semitic, and a number of individuals, including Jewish individuals, coming to his defense. And so it'll be interesting because now the discussion is not within Democratic circles is not just about this mayoral race, but whether or not Democrats will primary Representative Panich in the upcoming election.
Spiro, let's get to you quickly, and then Donnell, I want to hear what your readers are telling you and your reporting as well. Spiro, you first.
Yeah, North Fulton, Sandy Springs, Gwinnett, those areas, when you start looking at state house, state senate races next year, that is ground zero for where the swing districts are, and which could, potentially change the numbers in the state General Assembly. So I think this is going to be more common moving forward, that you're going to have in these local races some bipartisan or some cross-pollination between candidates.
You might want that too.
Yeah, through this whole conversation, if there's been one theme, we've talked a lot of topics, but if there's been one theme, it's been 2026. And what these races, these elements, all foreshadow going into the new year. Donnell, I want to give the last word to you. Looking at this race, this municipal race, looking at 2026 ahead, we've got a lot of smart people who watch the show. What should they be watching out for? And what are you watching out for that are going to be the driving themes of this election cycle?
Voter turnout. This past election cycle was pretty strong turnout for being midterm.
The PSC race.
Right, the PSC race in particular, something that people would normally not even care about.
An off year.
Right, a total off year and a total off topic candidacy, and yet a lot of people turned out. So I feel like in the primary coming up, there'll be a big turnout.
We'll see. A lot of it depends on excitement, as we were all just talking about. So hopefully all of you watching are excited, because we're going to be here every single week breaking it down, all the big races. Zach, Fred, Spiro, Donnell, thank you all so much. We'll see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the extended panel of the Georgia Vote. See you then.